Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal are in front.
Huge news! Manager who made it all the way to a European final last season was sacked. No, calm down. It was Pochettino. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. If I gave you odds that a manager who made it to a European final and lost a European final last season would be sacked, you might not have picked the guy who went to the CL final, but indeed, he has gone. Ding dong, the witch is dead. He'd been eating his feelings for a while, and now the game has eaten him. Pochettino gone from Spurs, replaced by none other than Emperor Palpatine himself, Jose Mourinho, which does a few things for us, namely not putting Mourinho in the frame for our job. We will discuss all of that. We will discuss Granit Xhaka not being able to accept what has happened to him. We will discuss what has happened to him, because that is obviously very important. We'll look ahead to Southampton, a run of 4 easy winnable games, so we can look forward to somewhere between 3 and 4 points coming up. That'll be exciting. And just all the general fun that is Arsenal Football Club right now. A couple of quick notes. This holiday season, we are going to have the return of a very special sponsor of ours that you may not have heard of if you're newer to the podcast, but that's right. It's The Enclosed. They are a lingerie company. They have some of the finest, best, high-quality, affordable lingerie on the planet. And you don't have to walk into a store and touch all the silk and look like a weirdo shopping for your partner or yourself. So you'll be hearing about them coming up. We also have a really fun competition with The Athletic that we're going to run. So if you've been thinking of signing up, next Monday we're going to launch a competition. But suffice it to say, one of the members of this podcast will lose this competition and have to do a karaoke song as the cold open for a podcast around Christmas time. So all that's going to be fun. What I want to do before I introduce the man you already heard, Paul and Clive, is just say over on Patreon, we did a Pochettino In-Out live show. It was free for everybody, and then the live recording is there. Clive and I are going to be doing a rewatch maybe tomorrow, but it may get pushed. We'll see, but that's coming up. More than anything, I want to thank everybody listening right now. I want to thank everybody who has signed up for Patreon. We have some fun stuff that we're going to be doing there, but most importantly, I know this hasn't been the most fun season, and there's been a lot of complaining, and I admit, I'll raise my hand. This is me raising my hand in audio format, that I'm guilty of it, but we really love you for being here. It is a wonderful community of people chatting about the Arsenal, not just on the pod, but on social media and all the various places that we chat with one another, and it means a lot to us to have you aboard. So with that having been said, Paul's on Twitter at PosInMyPants. Hello, Pos.
Woohoo.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Hello.
Tim doing a lot of stuff with the women's game, which is awesome because that's the part of Arsenal that rules right now. So he can't be available today, but he will be available soon. The Southampton game is upcoming. But let's start, Paul, with the big news. European finalist coach sacked. Sadly, not Emery. It was Pochettino. I'm curious, first and foremost, your take on... I want to take this from an Arsenal angle. So, first of all, do you think it's good or bad that he was sacked? But also, do you think his removal, given what he's achieved there, which is the sum total of fuck all, but let's be honest, he's been pretty good for them. Do you think it's good for Arsenal? And do you think it puts any further pressure on the Arsenal hierarchy to act, given that Spurs have made a decisive move with a much longer tenured and more respected manager? And if that does put pressure on us to do something?
So the latter part of it, I think it momentarily puts a spotlight on their slowness to act with their own issue, their own manager. But I think that narrative will shift immediately this weekend as things get busy again. So I don't think there's any long-lasting impact really from the fact that Spurs have made their move at this point. The pressures will be there, but they'll just come from the general course of football and the results. The results will drive things, and the results of our competitors. I would have much preferred to have Pochettino stick around for the whole season. I mean, why change a losing formula? I always say. So, things were totally dysfunctional there, and the longer they stuck with that, the better. And then there's the whole Mourinho conversation. That's a whole other conversation. But things just weren't good there. And the longer that stew kept stewing, the better. So that'd be my quick take on it. So, I mean, they're going to get a new manager bounce, even if it's Satan or Hitler. They'll still get one with Mourinho. And then
I feel like the Satan-Hitler combo is the perfect coaching duo for them, but...
Well, I was suggesting now, if they're going to organize things so that everybody we hate is at the one club, if they could get Hitler, Satan, Boris Johnson, and Trump on the board there.
Now, we're not going to get political. You could have just went with something like Arsblog's, like Phil Collins could be on the board for them or something like that.
Yeah, doesn't move me in the same way, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of neat and tidy. They're all in the one place. We know where to go for our hate, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, so Clive, I mean, I think what you see when managers get sacked, especially at bigger clubs, is at the end always looks sort of familiar. Lots of noises coming out of agents, not like farts and stuff, but like, an unsettled fan base, results that are flagging, players starting to make agitated noises through their agents and representatives that are leaking out to the press. And I think, whether it was Jose at United or Poch at Spurs or Emery at Arsenal, you can see a lot of similarities. I mean, do you look at what happened with Poch and the way this season has gone, the unrest in the dressing room, the performances on the pitch, the comments that the manager himself was making, and you look at the Emery situation and say, these look very similar, and that similarity has to be something that is now, even more abundantly clear to the hierarchy at Arsenal. I mean, do you feel that this move by Spurs, especially because it is, I think in some ways, despite the fact that they're parting company with a very successful manager, an ambitious statement that they're not willing to just give up on a season, is that something that has to be considered at Arsenal in terms of whether we're going to do something?
Right, there's a lot in there, right? So I think from a Spurs point of view, I think what they've done is a pretty smart move, right? So Pochettino's been there 5.5 years, and in that time, I think they've rebuilt the training ground, they've rebuilt the ground, they have around nearly £700 million worth of debt in the club, and they have, from an infrastructure perspective, they probably have the best infrastructure in Europe, full stop, right? Their ground, particularly, I don't like it from the outside, but from the inside, it's fantastic, right? So we're talking about a club that's made massive steps forward. They've been in the Champions League the last 2, 3, 4 years. They've reached a Champions League final. They've got a global visibility that's on the rise. Pochettino's done a lot of that build with Levy in the background. I felt they did not do their contracts well. They did not pay the players they should have paid earlier. So now have 3 or 4 players waiting for their big contracts and they're not going to sign. So that causes disruption. The fact that Ali and Kane have got their money and others haven't, that causes fractions in the dressing room. And those fractions have become, really obvious to everybody. But from a Levy perspective, there's been a long-standing view at Spurs that the club is being fattened up for a sale. I think with the debt on the ground, I don't think Joe Louis really wants to end up paying for that. I think that'll be part of the sale price. And to keep that sale price high, they need to be in the Champions League or they need to be relevant. So if you lose Pochettino, one of the 3 bright sparks, although I do feel he's been overrated slightly, and the only reason he's been overrated has been because he's had a number of young English players that were prominent during the World Cup. So the media kept him on side and Southgate kept him on side. And in England, that's a good thing. You got English players coming through, so you can do what you like. When you look at their league form this year, I think they've won only 6 out of the last 24 games. So this has been the post, and they've got some very lucky Champions League wins, which glossed over the whole situation. So from their perspective, they need to be relevant. So who makes you relevant immediately? And that's Mourinho, right? So if you're going to pay up somebody, and you don't have to pay for somebody, from a compensation point of view, Mourinho is the obvious target. He will keep them relevant with his press conferences alone. There was a little flash on Twitter today showing the Arsenal press conference with one man and his dog there, and the Tottenham press conference with half the Western world there, right? So they will be incredibly relevant, and that's going to push their price up. That's going to keep them in people's minds globally. I mean, Mourinho, whoever we think about him, he's probably one of the top 5 managers in the world from a global impact perspective.
He's box office.
Yeah, that's a better word, Paul. Thank you. And so Spurs are repositioning themselves, right? So if you're a player now coming to London, Spurs, Arsenal, Chelsea, which ones feel more attractive to you? Right? It's a debate, isn't it? Depending on the player. But there was a few years ago, there was no debate. There was no debate, right? That debate is there. And so that repositioning is something we should not dismiss. And regardless of what happens with Mourinho, there will be talk. And I always want Arsenal to be relevant and to be that place where everyone wants to be. And let's be honest, it doesn't feel like that right now. It really doesn't.
There's a few things to unpack here. So let's dive into the Jose thing. I mean, first of all, I think that we forget too easily what his football was like the last time we saw him. Everybody focuses on the way he blows up a dressing room and the way he makes it all about him and the way it all becomes drama and acrimony and antagonism. But there's also a tactical side of this. And I thought Jose's tactical approach to the football at United was really poor. Low intensity in midfield, low pressure, deep defending, and not particularly effective build-up play. Like, I don't know that there was much there, and he was routinely getting out-coached tactically towards the end there. And I think there's a real question about whether he has a solution for that anymore. As modern football has changed to a more up-tempo, intensity, transition-oriented game, and I've never seen him really able to institute that. I also think Spurs is constructed. That squad, as built, is built to play a more front-footed transitional game. And so it'll be interesting to see, can they play another way? Now, Paul, I'll let you in here in one second, absolutely. But the other thing that I want to say about, because Paul is furiously typing into the chat box that he wants to disagree.
I'm not done yet.
There is certainly no debate that tactically Jose was not good at United at the end, and that whatever we think about the dressing room stuff, the tactics report. And one other thing to your point, Clive, about players wanting to come to Spurs, Jose burned a lot of big players at United, at Chelsea, with big super agents, Jorge Mendes and guys like that. Pogba hates him, hates his fucking guts. And so are agents going to say, yeah, I want to bring my player to Spurs to go play for a guy who, at a minimum, by season 3 is going to be at war with some of his stars and freezing them out and destroying their careers? Are younger, bright prospects going to want to go there when he sold off players like De Bruyne and Pogba initially, I believe he got rid of? There are a lot of young, talented players he had sold when he was at clubs, who those clubs then had to buy back for huge sums later and things like that. So this is a guy who has shown an inability to develop young talent, has sold a lot of young talent that wound up going on to be superstars, that has gone to war with big stars who have big star super agents. I think that can be hard for recruitment for them from a player standpoint. I think tactically the game is beyond him. And ultimately, just from a selfish standpoint, thank God he's not coming to ours, because that would not have been a move that I would have been supportive of. I know there are some people that disagree. Plus, you talk about being a box office. I mean, look, the possibility that he makes them better. Let me just finish with this, Paul, and then I'll let you know, I promise. There's a possibility he makes them better. There's a possibility anyone would have made them better. Because candidly, when you look at their results and their underlying metrics, Spurs have legitimately been one of the worst teams in England this season. There's no way around it. So anyone coming in could have made them better. But the one thing Jose brings with him that I'm not sure any other manager does is the chance for it to go catastrophically bad, for it to explode in staggering ways. If you go on Spurs Twitter, they're not super happy about this. And so he's already on a little bit of pins and needles with the fans, which could be trouble. So I think, had they made some sort of milquetoast appointment, some anodyne appointment, they could have just gotten a little new manager bounce and been mediocre this season and maybe climbed the table. Yes, Jose could make them better, but he's the one appointment that has the potential to really, really crater this thing. So with that, I will yield the floor to you, Paul, to disagree with every statement I have just made.
Yeah, I think I do shockingly disagree with every statement you made. And I'm somebody who assumed Jose Mourinho's next move would be an even bigger dumpster fire than the ones he's left behind him in every spot he's been for the last few clubs. But I'm kind of shocked that this is actually a great fit. Him and Levy know each other, so they know what they're getting into. So why are they both doing this? I mean, on paper you say, well, Spurs doesn't spend enough money. They don't go big in the market. Levy doesn't have much truck with managers who want to give him too much shit and speak out of line. Jose will always bitch about transfers, always gets political, always sticks it to the owner or whoever and starts moaning after whatever. But I think Clive's right here. This is all about box office and positioning Spurs as one of the top clubs, super clubs, lining them up for the European Super League, keeping in them as a top 4 team or looking like a top 4 team. And Jose still has that somehow miraculously. The first thing is they will get a new manager bounce, because anything but Pochettino right now will have them all breathing a sigh of relief. Secondly, this squad is not the squad that Pochettino had a few years ago in terms of youth, energy, vigor, pressing high up the field. Even under Pochettino, they started kind of moving downfield, controlling more of the game. This is an older team. Harry Kane can't press, and the front line built around Harry Kane is not going to be a team that presses upfield. This is actually a Jose Mourinho 11 when you look at it. Look across the back line. Alderweireld, Vertonghen. He'll have to do something at right back at some stage, of course. He's got Dyer, Sissoko, etc. in midfield. Yeah, but Dyer's but hang on. Dyer's a player he wanted to buy. That's a very
that should be another strike against Mourinho.
Yeah,
Dyer
but you might
terrible.
not like him. He's going to love him.
Do you think he's any good at football?
I think he's okay. I think he's very much in a Mourinho system. I think
Paul,
he's
I respect
good.
your opinion of football. This is just a disagreement. It's not that I think I can't say you're wrong. I just think Dyer is horrendously bad. But that's just me. I'm prone to that.
Okay, but I mean, anybody who thinks Mourinho's bad at assessing a player, his ideas may be a little outdated, but he knows what he likes and he knows what he can get out of players. And then he likes a good centre forward, a proper centre forward, which is kind of moving away from where most teams are at. But he knows how to use Harry Kane as an actual out-and-out centre forward, and having the energy of Son and more up front. And he does actually know how to use a number 10 as a creative player in his system. So he from day one, he has an 11 he can work with, which is not what he had at United. The other thing is, Levy went big in the market this summer. He's going to keep spending the money. And the one thing, I agreed with everything Clive said, apart from the situation of the wages and the contracts. I think this suits both of them. They can make some changes in the next window. They have players Mourinho can work with, or in the next summer window. They have players Mourinho can work with right now. Some of those players may decide they like this setup. There was a lot of fatigue over Pochettino. So will Alderweireld and Eriksen both stay next summer? No, but probably one of them will. And the other thing is the wages are so low. That was before the stadium deal was done. That's a beautiful situation to walk into. This is now all about the sales. So he's kept the wages low for a reason. This gives them all sorts of salary cap, all sorts of movements in terms of transfers that Mourinho would want. And I think they both, and the idea that Levy doesn't want to work with super agents was true in the past, but Mourinho's connections, the Lille connection with Campos, trying to get him on board, already haven't got some of their folks involved. So they get Campos on board or somebody of that ilk. They start doing deals with agents Levy wouldn't have talked to in the past, because they're now trying to be box office.
Yeah, assuming those agents aren't off of Mourinho because of experiences their clients have had. And Clive, I'll let you know. But the only thing I just want to say in response to that about the wage thing is, you have a lot of players at Spurs who are upset about their current pay packets, and now you've just made Jose one of the highest paid managers in the world and making more than every player at the club.
But there's an easy way to fix that.
What, pay your players more?
Yeah.
Well, sure, if they're willing to do that. They haven't proven they'll do that. All right, so Clive, come on in.
There's an inevitability that things were going to change regardless. And To me, that's what this
it's
signals.
just put more focus and pressure on an issue that is already apparently a disruption for this club. So, which is
they were going to
wonderful.
have to make these moves.
Yeah, fine. And and look, guys, this is just one of those tired old moves you expect from a no creativity club. Like, there's a world of young, exciting coaches out there with really interesting ideas, and they've gone for the guy who's now flamed out at a few places, who is box office for sure, but a car crash in waiting as well. And it just, I'm hopeful that it will go the way it has gone the last few places it's been. Clive, you've been frozen out too long. Come on in from the cold.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, hey, look, when you make decisions, you hope that you make them from a position of strength. And Spurs have made a decision mid-season from a position of weakness. And they've come up with Jose Mourinho. And they've not only just come up with him, but they bring all of the things that come with him. And I think they don't mind some of those things. It's interesting that you went straight to the football. Your points around the football are correct, right? In the Manchester United, I felt he was tactically a little bit yesterday. But that can change with different coaching staff around him, which he seems to be doing. And with also a bit of a personal redress of how he's
made those comments, right? He said, I've freshened up my ideas. I've had time to, reevaluate.
Give a guy,
Who knows?
I mean, from that side of things, well, fair play to you, mate. You've decided to have a look at yourself the way you do. You always look for some sort of disruption with certain players to create friction in the dressing room. That's management style. Is no longer the management style of the modern manager. Simple as that. So you would get with the program, or you will just blow up. And so I do feel there's a bigger game here. I feel that Spurs are, they're sort of cashing checks they don't really want to pay. And I think someone else will pay for this. He's on $15 million a year. I mean, can you believe that? $15 million a year.
And they can't sack him because of that. You know what I mean? Like, they've really hitched their wagon to him because they can't pay him $15 million to go away.
Well, they must hopefully there's a decent severance here, which is capped, right? But $15 million a year, that is a fork in the road. Now, if Spurs had got Nagelsmann, for example, I would be feeling sick right now.
Yep.
Because that is the one, right? Or somebody like him.
Ten
others
Hag.
out there.
Yep.
There are others out there that are more hipster than me that can tell me 5 names that they would like to see at Arsenal from a modern coaching perspective. Mourinho wouldn't be the choice I would choose, but it doesn't mean I don't understand it. I do always worry about Arsenal's position at the top table. And I know we've missed them for a couple of weeks, or some of us haven't missed them for a couple of weeks, but I'm always worried about relevancy. That's the thing that I worry about the most, apart from results. And I want us to be more relevant, either by playing good football, having a vibe around the club that's really positive, or having a set of players that make people want to come and watch and playing in a certain way. And we are not doing any of that. And everything seems to be happening around us. It's happening at Liverpool. It's happening at City. It's happening at Chelsea. Whether you like it or not, something is happening at Spurs, or will be about to, unless West Ham come along on Saturday, like they love to do, and chin them and take them straight out. Teams can go up and down very, very quickly, but I don't laugh at this, Elliot. Put it that way. I do not laugh at this. But we can't sit back there and worry about him playing Nemanja Matic in midfield and think that's the limit of his ambitions or his talent. That would be disrespectful. I don't laugh at this. He's been to many, many clubs around the world, and he's achieved a lot in his career. He may be on the downslide, but sometimes you need each other. He's on the downslide. He's got a club which is local to where he lives, and Spurs are looking to reposition themselves. And so the marriage sort of fits, and they are a physical team, a big team, the sort of team that suits his profile. And so I don't laugh at this. I want it to go wrong, just like any Arsenal fan would.
Okay, phew.
Let's not snigger at this with a small mind and think.
Well, that's my specialty.
Okay, snigger this with a small mind.
I got that covered.
Yeah, we remember the final day of the main night after he stole his contract and then just checked out. Pochettino ran out of energy as well. He signed his contract and checked out after Champions League final. It happens. People burn out at the top level. And I think Mourinho burned out at Manchester United once he didn't get Maguire. He said, I'm not having this. I'll sign his contract and you can pay me up. And that's what he did. That's just business. And I think what Levy's doing is pure business.
Yeah. Then the question becomes, is it good football? And I think, look, I always try to think range of outcomes, right? Because I think you never know how something's going to work out. So you try to establish what the range of outcomes are. I think they made some interesting moves in the summer, and they could have appointed a young up-and-coming coach with some interesting tactical ideas and said, we're going to start to shift who we are on the pitch towards this guy's viewpoint, utilizing some of the new players that we have and recognizing that guys like Eriksson and Alderweireld and whatever, however you say the fucking name, and Rose and all those guys are going, Vertonghen probably going, all of these guys that we have to replace. There may be an issue with Dele Alli. There may be an issue with Kane. So we'll start to reshape. Instead, you've gone for a guy who only accepts winning now, isn't there for a project, isn't there to, tactically rebuild the squad. You've paid him a massive amount of money. You're now hitching your wagon to him. And so when I look at range of outcomes, he could make them better. As I indicated earlier in the pod, they've been so bad that one of the obvious outcomes is that they just get better, maybe substantially so, just by removing Pochettino.
We keep saying so bad, but are they just 3 points behind us?
Yeah, but Clive, I mean, we're bad. And the other thing is, like, they're on a very low point total, but it's not just that. Their underlying metrics are really bad. So it's not like they've been unlucky or anything. But here's my point. Okay. The range of outcomes, the one thing that Jose brings into the frame that excites me is the doomsday scenario. The cratering, the implosion, the at war with his star players, at war with his fans. I mean, Jose brings a range of outcomes into play that very few coaches do. And it may not go that way. I fully acknowledge it, but I would be excited by that. You know what I did? I did not miss him being away from the game as a coach. I didn't miss the vitriol, the poisonous attitude, the constantly being at war with everyone, the sniping, the grotty behavior. And I have to admit, look, football is fun because it's about pantomimes, and it's about tribalism, and it's about big emotions. But his is so poisonous that I just didn't miss it. What I will say is, if they had to pick a guy to go there who I was going to hate, this is it. Because Pochettino, for as much as I couldn't stand them and couldn't stand his football and didn't like him, there was a way you could kind of get around to sort of admiring him. I will have no problem hating Jose at Spurs and hoping he fails. So here's to that. We should really wind this conversation around Arsenal. I think we've sort of touched on all the issues that it means for us. I look at it and I say, maybe they made these decisions, as you indicate, Clive, for business reasons. But we talk about the kinds of noises that come out of a club that point to dysfunction. And a lot of times they come from fans, and sometimes they come from players. And there's a lot of that happening with players right now. Let's start, Paul, with Lucas Torreira. We've heard from his representatives, but now we've heard from him, apparently speaking while he was away with Uruguay, where he played very well in his preferred position. He said, now Arsenal needs me to be focused. I can't start talking about another team. I need to be focused. And when the transfer window arrives, we will see what happens. That's a big claim. That's not 2 summers from now or next summer. That's like a month and a couple weeks from now. That is the statement of a player who is definitely thinking about his future. And I'm curious for you, how much of this you put on Emery and how he has used him, how much you put on it just being a lack of comfort transitioning to England and the weather and the Premier League and whatnot. I mean, I think we've evaluated Torreira weirdly because he was excellent in the first half of last season. He sort of struggled down the stretch last season, which basically every player at Arsenal did. Playing mostly out of position this season and not playing all the time, I don't think he's ever been bad, where you're just like, oof, he's the problem. How do you see this shaking out, and how big a loss would it be in your mind if he does move on?
Well, the loss part of it is conditioned by the fact that, as you say, we haven't seen him at his best since maybe the first half of the first season. So I've kind of been discounting him somewhat in my evaluation in my mind, and that's really just a function of how he's been used. So I still tend to believe this is a valuable player who should be competing for a start in our 11, whatever our squad looks like next year, and whoever the manager is. I do think all of this is down to how he's been used by Emery, and that I'm not totally wigged out by this, because the bigger issue is, when are we going to fix the Emery problem? And Torreira is about the size of a canary, and he's the canary in the mine here, which is he's the first guy saying, if you guys don't fix things here, I'm going to be off, and I'm going to be pushing to be off. I don't think he's going anywhere till Raul and Edu want him to go anywhere. He's on a long-term contract. I'm guessing it was 5 years when we got him, so that means he's 1.5 years into it. He ain't going anywhere. We don't want him to go unless he's willing to be a total douche in the media. And he has been somewhat vociferous, which surprised me a little bit with him, but it's still fairly clean. I mean, he's not saying anything unpleasant. He's just saying he's not super happy how he's been used. And he has a point. I mean, who can disagree with him? So fix the Emery problem. Use him the way he should be used by a manager. And I think he becomes a much happier chap. And we say to him, hey, give it 12 months under new manager, exciting setup, who gets you and knows how to use him. And if the new manager doesn't know how to use him, then I guess that's no loss either way at the end of the day. He'll hold his value and we'll sell him and we'll get the player that new manager wants. But this is really all about Emery, how Emery uses him. And the fix is when we fix the Emery situation, when we bring in the manager that needs to take us forward and needs to have a plan that the players can get a philosophy, a style, a system or set of systems that works for players and uses the players we have in the positions they need to be used, then I think this problem gets solved pretty quickly. I mean, if he really, really wants to go back to Italy, so be it. But I think that's somewhat unlikely. I think a happy player is happy within the club, and he's just not been used right.
It's just, to me, it is such an invalidation of Emery in some ways because it's such an important part of our squad building approach. We had to turn over a squad. We decided to let Ramsey go. And you can argue that that was the right call, given that, again, he's struggling with injury and he wanted a lot of money, and we're fine, whatever, move on from that. The point is, like, we bought a 22-year-old central midfielder with defensive instincts who likes to shield a back line. We bought him right as he was starting to really ascend in his club career and his national, international career. Part of this rebuild, this turning over of the squad, you combine that with Guendouzi, who looks like a very, very bright superstar for the future, who's going to take some time to develop, and you say, there's your double pivot for the future. That's an anchor for a midfield that we can build around. We need maybe one more athlete in the midfield, someone who's more of a box-to-box, modern kind of 10-style player. Let's develop that guy. Maybe it's Joe Willock, maybe it isn't, maybe it's a young player at the club, maybe it's someone we have to go out and get fine. But, like, you start to lose a player like that, and now you're saying Xhaka's gone, Torreira's gone, we have a kid in Guendouzi. We have a kid in Joe Willock. Ceballos is a loanee who's out for a month, who's probably not going to make it at Arsenal, so that's gone. There's no midfield. There's nothing. You're starting over. And it invalidates part of that important step that we took in the squad building process almost entirely because you have a coach who refused to use the player in the way that he was envisioned to be used when he was acquired. So, yeah. Clive, I mean...
And just leading into Clive's, I mean, Torreira wasn't the player that Emery wanted. Apparently it was Banega, a bigger, lumpier player, and maybe a little bit more like Xhaka in physicality, and maybe he has that Mourinho bias in terms of what he likes that holding player to look like.
Maybe, sorry, and that's totally fair. But I do think that Emery took the job knowing that his role was head coach, not manager. And I think part of being willing to take that job is being willing to use the pieces you are given. And I don't know that Emery has done that with Torreira. So, Clive, how critical could this be in terms of retarding our progress in squad rebuilding and development? And how much of this concerns you vis-a-vis Emery?
I think when you are the head coach, you maybe don't have the final say on certain players, and someone like Torreira is a classic. We're going to park you for 2-3 years and then sell you for 20 million extra euros on top, right? So, and I think if Emery didn't want that player, and this is super. No, this is just us guessing, right? The only way you can really fight back is by almost misusing the player. That's the only way, because you're not involved in the financials, you're not involved in the wages, you're not involved in the contract length, but you are involved in how they play and where they play. If you want to make a point about what a player can and can't do, play in the position that doesn't really work for him. It's the only way a coach can fight back. Personally, I really like Torreira. I like what he brings from a profile point of view, but I also know that type of player can be replaced really, really quickly. This isn't a problem. This isn't a Mustafi issue where you've got a player you bought for 35 million and you'll be lucky if you get 20 million for him. So I don't feel worried about that because we'll get our money back and more. He looks as though from last summer, it surprised me last summer when there were rumblings, that was a I'm not sure I made the right decision. I could have gone to Napoli. I chose Arsenal. I'm not finding it easy here. It's obviously he hasn't really settled massively. If you ever look at, as soon as he goes to international break, he's back home with his family. Every single point he can possibly get back. So we have a player that's not really settling. Let's be honest about that. We sort of know that. Whether Emery plays in his best position or not, he is not here for long term. So if I'm the club now, I am looking for another player that can do a job. I would personally like a more physical player, a taller, leggier player that suits the Premier League a lot more. And that's what I would do. So I'm not worried about that, but I think we need two of those type of players, if I'm honest. So just to give us some stature in the centre of the pitch and some speed and some athleticism. So I just think we've missed that for years. Why are we just continuing to have players that don't actually do all of the jobs we need to be done in our central areas? So if Torreira goes, it's unfortunate. If I had a choice, Torreira or Guendouzi to go, it would be Torreira. I think Guendouzi's ceiling is massive. I think he has something about his personality which is linked to the club, which I like. But I would like to see Arsenal turn it around and win Torreira. If Torreira does go or Xhaka does go, we can only stomach that if the replacements are better. If they're better, we move on very, very, very quickly. That's just the nature of the football fan.
Yeah, and by the way, again, I mean, for me, it is not just about whether I like the player and, do I think he's great or not. I think it is very hard to evaluate any player in the Emery environment. But it is a question of how a club plans to build its squad going forward. And when you buy a 22-year-old central midfielder for a reasonable fee from an Italian club that's, a decent club that he's in the ascendancy of his career at that moment and doing well at club level and doing well at international level. And by the way, still doing well at international level for, a legit international side. By the way, Uruguay is a good team. Like, I think that is part of a strategic approach to rebuilding the squad. And when you lay out those plans, they are multi-year plans. And so when one of those key pieces fails because of the deployment by the coach, that is a major problem. And for me, if I were Raul, which, thank God for everybody I'm not, and I don't have the voice for it, that would be a big strike in that column. But Paul, there's another big strike, and that is the one that our Capitan, or former Capitan, Granit Xhaka is going on. Let's talk about Xhaka, and let's read the comments first. I have a clear idea as to how things should proceed, and Arsenal know this as well. Although I still have a contract with them, I will be glad to return to the club so we can finally sort matters out. There will surely be a solution, as I can't accept what has happened with me. Defiant, to say the least. Certainly fits with his hot-headed personality. This is a player who very clearly sees himself as the victim. Victimized by his fans, victimized by his coach, victimized by his club, cannot tolerate the victimization that he has suffered and needs to be given a move away from this club that has done so wrong by him. I, as you might guess, have thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours first. Paul.
So my whole thing about him is, sorry about that, had you on mute.
Yeah, understandably.
It
was your best contribution of the pod so far.
Yeah, thanks very much. Look, here's what I think is going on with Xhaka, and I wrote a whole blog on it. It's all about respect. I think that's culturally how he views the world, and he thinks he's been disrespected.
I did read your blog about that on what was it? What's it called? Culture, honor culture, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. You see it in the southern United States. You know it when you see it. It's a very tribal thing. It's a very southern states of America thing. You don't disrespect me. It's not about the rights and wrongs. It's not about victimization. It's not about all of these things. I think that's our cultural filter. It might be a better cultural filter, but it's our cultural filter. He's all about respect, and there's no way of denying he was disrespected. That's why he has never thought he should apologize, because they disrespected him. That's his. Now, you don't have to agree that was the blow by blow, but you can absolutely see why he would think he was disrespected as captain of the club in that situation. Now, you can totally disagree with his assessment of the situation, but fully understand why he would see he was disrespected. And to be honest, I think he was. Now, he was captain of the club and should have handled it totally differently. I don't think what he did was right or acceptable. I'm not convinced he should keep the captaincy. And I think overall it's probably a good thing for the club to have found a way to winkle him out of the situation where he started every game and he was the club captain. So although I don't like any aspect of how it all came to pass, it's probably the one thing that has loosened up our lineups so that we can actually start to pick players who should play in their positions. And it's allowed us to have Guendouzi and Torreira as the two pivots in a somewhat reasonable performance away to Leicester, though, of course, it ended rather badly in the end. But at least it's some sign of hope. Now, if we'd only use Torreira as actually the deeper of the two players and allow Guendouzi to be freer upfield, that might be even better. But it's a start. Xhaka's comments at the moment, I'm afraid I don't pay it a lot of attention. I see people getting really excited about it and worked up about it. I don't really care. I think they'll work that out among themselves or they won't. And while I could get really upset about it, I do actually understand where he's coming from, even if it wouldn't be my take on it. It doesn't get me that upset. And so in that sense, I'd hand the mic back to you so you can be even more upset about Xhaka.
Before I get even more upset about Xhaka, Clive, I want you to weigh in on this because I am going to try to give a more nuanced take than you might expect from someone of my ilk.
Okay. Well, when he says, I can't accept what happened to me, we're all assuming it's probably the booing or whatever. So I actually think it may be the fact that he lost his captaincy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think it may be that. And I think he feels disappointed about that. I do think Arsenal are a bit stupid sometimes, it's obvious to me that from the middle of last season that Xhaka was the captain of the club. He was the real leader in the dressing room. Whether you liked his performance or not, that's how he performed. As soon as the season ended, he should have been made club captain. Simple as that. You're club captain. It doesn't mean you play every week. Mertesacker was club captain one year, hardly played, didn't he, if I remember right?
I think we went 5 years without a club captain playing a game, so it's totally fine. Vermaelen was club captain, Mertesacker was club captain, Koscielny was club captain.
And normally within the club, that player is really obvious. It's like such an obvious decision. He's the player that controls things. He's the player that gives people rollercones when they're late for meetings. He's the guy that controls the fines. He's the one that organises the nights out with the players. It's so obvious to everybody in the club. He is the one. It's obvious he is that player. But when the way we see a captain is, he's a captain. That means he's going to play every week. We're not sure about him. We don't want him playing every week. We want him to be an option, not the option. And that's where the problem comes. Miscommunication about what that player means. And now within the club, he's obviously liked by the players, but this situation is now blown up where we've got a problem now. Is he going to play another game for us? We're not sure. Maybe he'll play at the weekend. That'll be fun. 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday. Good luck with that one, right? You better play well. And so now we've created this situation, which is all of our own doing due to poor communication and mismanagement of a very, very simple situation. It doesn't need to be this complex, but we're trying so hard to be transparent and collegiate. We've managed to make something small into something massive, another stick to beat the club and particularly to beat the manager with. So as a player, Xhaka, I've always sort of liked him, while knowing his limits. I feel he doesn't, to reach his full peak, I don't think he's in this league. I think he needs to be in more of a Spanish or Italian league or even the German league when he tends to just a step down. But he has talents that really suit a lot of teams. I just don't think he can play to the intensity continually that's required in the Premier League. And so if Arsenal need to cash in on him again, I just don't get hung up on players, Elliot. If he needs to go, it's all about how we replace, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, he has to go. I don't think he can ever play for us again. And I think that is now down to the fact that he has made it clear that he can't let this go. And that's fine. He can't let it go. Okay, so be it. You can't trust him on the pitch. You can't trust how the fans will react to him. You can't trust how he'll react to the fans reacting to him. He's unhappy with the manager. I think whatever unhappiness he has with the fans, and it's clear that he has a great amount of it, I think he now feels let down by the coach who stripped him of his captaincy and went right out publicly right after the game where he felt he was wronged by the fans. And the coach said he was in the wrong. And I don't think he expected that. And I think that further wounded him. I don't care that he's wounded. I really couldn't give a flying fuck that he's wounded. Football is a really rough business for the players, for the coaches. It is a high-pressure, high-intensity business. You get booed. You get told to get fuck off. I mean, abuse is never warranted. We've been through this. I do not want to cover again what is beyond the line and what is within the line. But at the end of the day, being a professional athlete is a celebrity business, and being a celebrity comes with costs, and it comes with benefits. And Xhaka reaps those benefits. And these are the costs. And he's saying he can't handle them. And I have a problem with that. And you may not, and that is totally fine. But what I will say is he has made it a situation that is untenable. He has chosen to lean into his sense of victimhood, and he has made the situation untenable. And I will point to Mesut Ozil, who has been through a hell of a lot. He's been through a hell of a lot with Germany. He's brought some of it on himself, just like Granit Xhaka. The stuff with Erdogan, the stuff with how he practices, his availability. He's also had some of it foisted upon him, like with Granit Xhaka, whether it's with coaches or things like that. At the end of the day, what did he do? He played the social media game. He came in and played like a real professional when he was on the pitch. He kept his head down. He tried to keep the fans on side. Maybe he's just a little more savvy. I don't think he's any harder working than Xhaka. Everyone acknowledges Xhaka is the hardest working person on the training pitch possible. But emotionally, his mental makeup, Xhaka didn't have it. He didn't have it to be at this level, and it got the best of him. I think Emery deserves some blame here. Xhaka was clearly struggling, and he was clearly part of the problem with the team, and the fans were getting frustrated, and Emery just kept putting him out there. Burnley was one of our best games in central midfield in the league. It didn't have Xhaka. He brought him right back. Emery trusted Xhaka, and to some extent, he let Xhaka down by continuing to put him out there when it wasn't working for him. So there's a lot of people to blame here. Maybe the fans own some. Maybe Xhaka owns a lot. Maybe Emery owns some. But what Xhaka's reaction has shown, the non-apology apology on Instagram that gets printed in the club program, the subsequent comments he has made, what he has shown is that he wants to move, and we have to give him that move, and that's the end of it for me. I don't think he is the devil. I just think he's a guy whose mentality at this level of the game is wrong. He's hot-headed. He's shown that the way he's reacted to things in his international career, in his club career. He's gotten a lot of red cards in his career because of it. He hauls players down. He hacks at them when they're past him. He's hot-headed. And that's fine. Again, we can get really worked up about this. We can get really angry. I'm not angry. I'm not. I just think he's wrong for us, and it's a wrong mentality for an elite sportsman, and that's my opinion, and I could be dead wrong, but I don't see how we can trust him going forward, which leads us to the following question now, Paul, and we can kind of end with this with you because I know you have to go. What do you have, like 1 minute?
Yeah.
So let me just say this to you real quickly. Coming up the weekend, it seems like Guendouzi Torreira picks itself. Can't pick Xhaka. Ceballos is injured. I mean, does this give us pretty much no choice going into one of our busiest periods, but to just keep picking Guendouzi and Torreira in midfield now?
Yeah, and a good shot at getting Ozil on the pitch. Saka may have a bit of a tweak too, so there might be an opportunity on the left wing for we either play Aubameyang there, and I think Pepe's coming back late, so he may not start. So there could be a Martinelli starting here in the front three, but I think the midfield three, if you want to call it that, may well be Torreira, Guendouzi with Ozil ahead of them, which, should be fun. So, yeah. I mean, if we can get our two full-back wing-backs playing, Bellerin and Tierney, then this could be an interesting game, a fun game where the 11 is picked more by itself than by Emery. He's got to go what he's given, and it might turn out to be a good thing for us.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll let you go, Paul. I wish I could keep you because we're going to just dive into the Project 36 thing one last time before we say goodbye to it, but I know you got to run. So Paul's on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Thanks, man. Woohoo. All right, Clive. So Project 36 was a run of 12 games that we identified as being a really good run where we could make a move up the table. It was 12 games, 36 points. We did a prediction thing over on Patreon, kind of a contest to win a shirt and all that. And people sort of said 22 points would be a disaster. 26 points would be about par. We could pick up 30 points on this run of 36 or 28 points, and that would be huge. What we have done through 8 of the 12 games is take 10 points. 10 of a possible 24 points. It's bad. It's really bad, obviously. Having said that, there are 4 games now where we will be a big favorite, if we could ever be a favorite in a game at this point, in all 4. This Southampton game is obviously a must-win. I think all of these next 4 are must-win. For you, what do you think of this run of 4 games? Is there a chance for Arsenal to go into the holiday program back on a little bit of stable footing if we can take advantage of this here? Let me read them out just real quick because people may not have them committed to memory. So it's Southampton at home. Then obviously we've got midweek Europa League. Norwich away, and they've been in a tailspin. Brighton at home. No bad memories there from last season. And West Ham away. And that would be the end of this 12-game run. And the only time we have a midweek game during that period is the Frankfurt game midweek this coming week. So how important is this run for us to have any chance to sort of salvage a top 4 run this season, whether it's with Emery or someone else?
I think it's absolutely massive. I don't think if we don't get a good return that Emery will survive it. I really don't. I know we didn't beat Brighton last year, and I think we lost at West Ham.
Speaking of Granit Xhaka, by the way, I mean the Brighton game was the Xhaka penalty that cost us a 1-goal lead, finished 1-1, and we lost top 4.
Yeah, that was massive, a massive game, and so I don't see any game as easy at the moment. I really don't. So if I'm the coach, just try to build on Leicester. Don't change it too much. Change the personnel, but keep the shape. Build on something. Give people some stability and something to look at. I really think it's important that we do that. So we're developing a pair in centre midfield. We've obviously got a couple of wing backs that are now ready to go. We can pick any 3 centre halves. As long as Luiz is in the middle, we're going to be okay-ish. You know, our keepers will have been one of the plus points this year. And just go with 2 strikers. All the time, go with 2 strikers. You know, make sure they play together and have Ozil in behind them. And just Pepe comes on for one of the 3. It doesn't matter which one, because he can do the Ozil role, he can do the striker role. So just make sure that 3 of those 4 are playing at all times. You know, so and just go with that. And I think we'll be absolutely fine if we go with that. Don't complicate things. Stop looking at Southampton's away record, which I heard him say in the press this week. Stop bringing in fear factors which don't need to be brought in. Just remind everybody what we've got and start to outpress, outwork, outplay teams again, because that's what we need to do. And if we don't, it's a pretty depressing place at the moment, Arsenal at the moment. And if this goes any worse than this, I think we are in the caretaker mode over Christmas. I think we will look for a caretaker, and then we'll be looking at the new manager in the summer, where we can decide from position of strength. We can pick the ones that we want. I think it's a critical time for the club, not just for positioning the league, but for positioning full stop. We are becoming a irrelevant club. And it pains me to say that, but that's how it feels. You know, we need to shape this up.
It is easy to measure yourself by best case scenarios. It is so easy to measure a coach when things are going right and measure a club when things are going right. The measure of Raul, the measure of Edu, and the measure of Emery, the measure of these people is when it's going poorly. How they thread the needle, how they get themselves out of it. You know, we compare ourselves with Liverpool a lot, and I'm sorry, but the reason we do it is it's a similar size club that was in a bad spot and got themselves back. Look at how they threaded the needle. They lost Raheem Sterling. They lost Luis Suarez. They almost lost him to us maybe, but no, they navigated that well. They got another season out of him and then sold him for a windfall to Barcelona. They navigated difficult situations. They found a way to get Klopp in. They found a way to get the right players at the right time, at the right age. You know, if Sadio Mane had come to Arsenal, would he have been Pepe'd by Emery? You know what I mean? Klopp found a way to use him and turn him into one of the best players in the world. And my point is, these are the hard times, and this is what you're measured by. And so it's all on the line now. Aubameyang could be gone. Do we give him a windfall contract that ties him to us through his declining years? Do we sell him for a windfall? The hard decisions have to be made, and the first one is about Emery. I want to read something to you, Clive. After that West Ham game, that's the end of Project 36, our easiest run of the season. I want you to hear what's coming for us in the subsequent 12 games leading through February and the return of the Europa League knockout rounds. Man City, Everton away, Bournemouth away, Chelsea, United, Palace away, Sheffield, Chelsea away, Burnley away, Newcastle, Everton, City away. Let me say it again in reverse. City away, Everton, Newcastle, Burnley away, Chelsea away, Sheffield, Palace away, United, Chelsea, Bournemouth away, Everton away, City. It is a brutal stretch of 12 games. Every single one of them, bar maybe Newcastle at home and the way we're playing, who knows. Every single one of them is a losable game. All of them. I mean, Sheffield at home, maybe not. Newcastle at home, maybe not. But Burnley away, Palace away.
Well,
those
Sheffield
are games
United have not been beaten away from home yet.
Okay, so there you go. So there you go.
Best defensive record,
every single one of those games can be points dropped. And let's not forget that some of those, like Chelsea and United, we play those games in 3 days, the 29th and the 1st. Okay? This next 12 games, if we had the best manager, if we had Klopp or Pep, you'd look at that 12 games and say, God, I'd probably take 18 points from that. I'd probably take 20 points from that. We are at 10 from our last 24. So even if we max points the next 4 games, which I struggle to see us doing, but even if we do, we're going to be 22 for these last 36. That's not good enough. And now we have a run of 12 games that makes that look like a walk in the park, which it was. So Clive, this is critical, because if we don't solve this problem, and in my opinion, the way you solve it is you remove the manager, could you see a situation where those subsequent 12 games go so poorly that the club is digging itself out of a hole that makes the end of the Arsene Wenger period look like party time?
that could easily happen. And this is why Saturday is really important, because we need to build confidence, because none of those games feel easy, because we've not won hardly any games with a level of confidence and pizzazz and flow, nothing. So we're just edging games, to take one of your lines, and none of it feels good. And I think it's important that we get the feel-good factor back. The only way to do that from a football point of view is get some stability in selection and some stability in system and build from there. Make sure you secure your back door, but make sure you have players on the pitch that can secure you and offensively as well, and make sure they're in the right places. It's a very simple thing to say, but for a coach like Emery, who's a bit of an over-coacher, this is my big worry for the weekend, that we're going to see another change in system when we don't need to. And we just need to get that simplicity and simple decisions in. I totally agree with you about the board, etc. This is the point when they have to earn their money in adversity, and we're not seeing anything yet. But then I'm thinking, well, you know what? You may have a strategy. You may know what you're doing. I have to trust you. Even though I've not really heard much, I have to wait till the football starts again to see what it looks like, because that's where everything gets judged, on the football pitch. For me, I think potentially Arsenal will have a caretaker lined up. It seems pretty obvious to me, and they're thinking maybe how they could support that person until the summer, and then we look again. That's a very quick move to make. It's not difficult if you're prepared. I don't think the managers that I would like to see are available, but we're heading towards that part of the season where we're going to find out very quickly, where we have games in quick succession and the table really starts to form itself and your ambition is solidified. We will know, Elliot, in 3-4 weeks, as you allude to, exactly what we're about and exactly what our competitors are doing and where their confidence levels are. And our competitive landscape at the moment, we look nearly the worst ones of all. And the one that was the Man United and the Spurs are supposedly worse than us. Well, Man United are refinding their confidence with Martial back in the team, and Spurs have just got a £15 million a year manager and all the lift that comes with that. So we need to shape up, mate. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good Christmas, Arsenal-wise.
No, it's, and look, I want to be clear, like, I don't want this to all be doom and gloom. I want to laugh, I want to have fun, and I mean, you know what would be great? It'd be great if we went out and won 5 or 6-0 at the weekend. It wouldn't mean that Emery should stay, and it wouldn't mean that everything's right, but it would be fun. I put on Twitter the other day, Clive, what's the last good, flowing, awesome move that led to a goal for Arsenal? I think we had a nice little Ozil through ball to who was it on the right that slid it across to Oba against Watford? Was it
Maitland-Niles?
Was it Maitland-Niles? Yeah, that's a nice little goal. But like, That's the funny thing. Sometimes all it takes in football to lift you is just a goal where you go, wow, it's a goal of the year candidate. It doesn't take much. We haven't had it. I think back to Leicester and Fulham last season. Leicester and Fulham, we're talking first half of last season to think of a really nice flowing team move that led to a goal that got you off your seat and really excited you. And this just needs to get more fun. I know that's sort of a reductive way of looking at it, but isn't that really what it boils down to? This should be fun.
It should be. It should be something that you look forward to, and it doesn't feel like that. So, there's a couple of games that stand out for me. Valencia away, I loved that game. I loved everything about it. I loved that game. And I loved the Villa at home game. I really enjoyed that game, the way we played, the adversity we recovered from. It's there. It's there within the team, but it feels like it's suppressed. I did a little tweet the other day talking about all our players and which ones do you think would go to a better club right now. And there wasn't many, people said, oh, Clive is down the manager, blah, blah, blah. But people tried to respond to it by saying, maybe half a dozen would go to a better club. But then I do think form and confidence play a big part in a player's output. And that sounds like an obvious thing to say. But if ever a team needs form and confidence, it's us. I'm not sure where the confidence has gone. But I'm not sure this manager, if that's his thing. I don't think he's a confidence builder. I just think he's a tactical coach that looks at too much detail. And when you look at detail, you can't help but tell people about that detail. That detail can sometimes be received in a negative way. You have to remind people who they are, what they do well, and show them. I'd love to see his video sessions. I wonder if he's showing a player when he had his last good game, this is what you do when you're good. This is what you do when you're on top form. This is how your body shape is when you receive it, when you score. And remind people of what they do well. We need a bit of that us at the moment. All of us. We need the fans to be better. We need everyone to be better. Because none of us are performing well at the moment. And that's why I'm a little bit broken. So I don't think this coach is a person that does that. I just think he's naturally cautious and naturally... pessimistic? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Naturally pessimistic, because that's how he sees his job. This club needs an optimist, and we haven't got one.
No, well said. Well, I hate to leave it on a down note, but you know what? Arsenal can lift us at the weekend. That would be nice. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Alex Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. We really appreciate you being here with us. I will endeavor to lighten the mood personally, if possible. I hope that there is good, fun stuff to chat about. I tried to shit on Spurs in this podcast, but both Clive and Paul decided to defend the Jose hiring. So I can only work with what I'm given here, folks. But you know what? At least it's interesting. May you live in interesting times, I think is the proverb and the curse. So we have that going for us, which is good. In any event, if you want to sign up for Patreon, we got some good stuff going on there, and we'll announce on Monday the fun sort of contest we have for the Athletic sign up. Until then, you can use theathletic.com/ArsenalVision. In any event, wherever you are, I hope you are doing well. I hope you are healthy and happy. There's a lot in the world that can bring you down right now, but we are all here for one another, and that is a good thing. In any event, we will talk to you after, hopefully, Arsenal 10, Southampton 8.